With EV prices on the way down, does buying a plug-in hybrid still make financial sense? Well, the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross PHEV might help you make up your mind. I'm Alex Dalrymple and welcome to this week's edition of Four Wheels and a Seat, my channel where every week I review a brand new car in a pretty simple, straightforward way designed to help you cut through the jargon in the showroom. If you don't want to miss an episode, you better hit subscribe though, so please click that button below the notification bell and give me a like if you enjoy the video. In 2024, the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross PHEV is pretty much the same car I reviewed about 2 years ago. You can check that review out by clicking the link just up there. And Mitsubishi pretty much, once they find a design, they stick to it. I mean, just look at the ASX. It is almost completely unchanged for the last 13 years. And the Eclipse Cross has been on our roads now for about 6 years, and yeah, it's pretty much the same, minor facelift aside. But what has changed is the world in which this car now exists, because EVs are much cheaper and there's far more of them to choose from than ever before. From the outside, I think this car actually looks pretty good. I mean, it looks exactly the same as before. I really like the shade of blue it's in. This particular car has been optioned with factory-fitted roof racks. Is it a turn-back car though? A car so good looking that you have to turn back and look at it after you've parked it? Well, I mean, it's not exactly ugly, but there are quite a few of them on the road, and Mitsubishi's design language is kind of the same across the board. So, is it turn-back worthy? Probably not. In the boot, there is 359 litres of storage space, which is a bit smaller than the petrol versions of the Eclipse Cross because there's a whopping great battery under the floor. Under the bonnet, and this is where things get a little bit complicated because we have two powertrains. A 2.5 litre four-cylinder naturally aspirated petrol engine that outputs 94 kilowatts of power and 199 newton meters of torque. And then there are two electric motors, one on the front axle outputting 60 kilowatts and one on the rear outputting 70. Now, you can't just add all those figures together to come up with a total power output because that's just not the way this works. And Mitsubishi actually don't quote a total power output on their stats. But suffice to say, this car has plenty of go. It is actually really quite a bit of fun to drive. Fuel economy is awesome too, averaging at just 1.9 litres per 100 kilometres on a combined cycle around town. And to charge the battery to 80% at a high-speed charger will take about 25 minutes. Charging the battery with an external charger isn't the only way to charge it. This car can actually charge it by itself. It uses an alternator to charge the battery while you're driving. And also, this car has no gears. And I know that sounds a bit weird. It just has one gear. So the electric motor, no matter how little charge there is in the battery, is always working to propel the car forward in conjunction with the petrol engine. So yeah, it's a complicated setup, but it works really well. The interior of the Eclipse Cross is actually quite dated, and I used to own a Mitsubishi Lancer, a 2007 model in fact, and its interior was not dissimilar to this. In fact, it had a lot of the same switch gear. So I guess Mitsubishi's thing is, if you're on a good thing, stick to it. But having said that, it is very well put together. When you've been building this same interior for so long, you get very good at it and it feels rock solid. We've got soft touch materials, different textured plastics, a fair bit of piano black, which does scratch easily. I can see that on this car here, and it's only done 6,000 kilometers, but it is well put together. So with that also comes some old school infotainment software on the center console screen. It's 8 inches and it's not very good, and I know Mitsubishi can do better because the latest Outlander has a much better system in it than this one. It is very bare bones. There's no native navigation. It's just really a collection of menus with a few very basic graphics on the home screen. There is a lot of plug-in hybrid battery information available through this screen. In fact, so much you could wade through it for quite some time, but you can't really look at that while you're driving around. The picture on the reversing camera, I would have to say, is about the lowest resolution I have seen in any car. The top-down 360 view, though, is actually quite good. Here in the Aspire model, we get an 8-speaker sound system, which is not great. The bass notes actually sound quite muddy and distorted. Moving down the console, climate controls, pretty straightforward. We've got dual zone and it works really well. A couple of USB-A chargers here in the front. There is a USB-A and the only USB-C charging port in the back for rear seat passengers. No wireless charging in this car, but there is a little space here to store your phone. And then the lower console here, which maybe just a little bit too much control here. We've got the weird sort of gear shifter here, which I don't really like. It's a little bit fiddly to use. And then we have multiple buttons to control the drivetrain. So there is a save charge button here, which tells the car whether you want it to save battery or to use the petrol engine to fire up the alternator to charge the battery. Then we have full EV mode, which avoids using the petrol engine at all and will keep using the battery power until it's depleted. Incidentally, there's only about 55 kilometers of range in it. And then we have the drive mode selector here, giving us the drive modes of tarmac, gravel, snow, normal, and eco. So there's a lot of choice as to which drive mode you're going to be in, and I actually found myself sitting down and looking at the instruction manual to try and work out what the ideal drive modes are, and that's not terribly intuitive when you have to do that. There is also the B driving mode, which you can select with the center shifter and control with these paddles here on the steering column. These are the same paddles that I used to have in my old Lancer, so they feel very familiar. There's 5 different levels of regenerative braking. None of them are very strong though, so unfortunately one pedal driving isn't possible in this car. For a car that has a lot of technology packed into it, the instrument cluster is pretty old school because we've got 2 big analog dials here, one for your speedo and the other showing you whether the battery is being used to propel the car forward or if it's charging or if the engine has kicked in, and a small little LED screen in between it, the design of which again dates back to my Lancer. It's pretty familiar. There's no digital speed readout on this car at all either, so you are just relying on those slightly inaccurate analog dials to tell you how fast you're going. The steering wheel is actually pretty nice. Some controls up here for the adaptive cruise control and the audio system. A little bit of piano black there, which feels nice, but again, might scratch. And the seating position is nice and high in the cabin, as you'd expect from a small SUV, so good visibility out the front and in every direction pretty much. The seats are cloth with leather accents. They are heated and there is electric adjustment for the driver. The upside, of course, of having an older design that's been tried and tested is that it's very reliable. You know it's going to work. Mitsubishi have really obviously got this design right, and they're backing it up with a 10-year warranty as well, which is industry leading. So in terms of durability and reliability, the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross is pretty well unsurpassed. And it is extremely smooth when switching between the electric and petrol powertrains. I mean, you'd actually barely know. You do hear the petrol engine whine a little bit, and I think the fact that it doesn't actually change gears sort of does make it a little noisier than it would otherwise. But the transition between the 2 powertrains is extremely smooth and very, very quiet. Now, while I'm a big technology fan and I really like high-tech gadgets, especially in cars, there is quite a large market for simpler, more straightforward motoring that's not as complicated to use, and that's very much what this is. And it gives you a lot of manual control, especially over the powertrain with controls down here in the lower console. And the infotainment isn't overly complicated and full of apps that you never use or, you know, things that are going to distract you while you're driving. It's just what you need when you need it. And a lot of people like that. Here in the Aspire, we get the full suite of available safety gear. So that includes lane departure warning, blind spot monitors in the wing mirrors, adaptive cruise control, and forward collision alert. So yes, this is an older car with older tech, but it's really good and it drives really well. Where does it fall down? Well, it's the price, because $57,000 is a lot of money for a compact SUV, especially when you can get a fully electric MG4 for about $10,000 less. But it does come with a 10-year warranty and Mitsubishi's outstanding reputation for reliability. So you gotta weigh all those things up and decide whether or not this is the plug-in hybrid for you.